So good morning, good afternoon, welcome to setting up and running a social enterprise. So it is what it is. So we're going to go through setting up and running a social enterprise, and I'm going to discuss why I'm here to deliver in this workshop today. I'm just checking in the chat. Okay, all right, so I hope you're all well today. So today's is part of the Elevate program. As you know, it's for businesses that are 0 to 3 years. It's supported by the London Borough of Waltham Forest Business Recovery and Growth Fund and coordinated by CREATE, with Hustle and Heels as one of the delivery partners. And I am part of the Hustle and Heels facilitators. So who am I? So I am Andrea Corbett. I actually live and work in Waltham Forest. So you know, I'm so proud and happy that I'm able to be part of this project as well. So as I mentioned, I'm a workshop facilitator for Hustle and Heels. I am also the founder and director of an organization called Focus on Creating Your Ultimate Self. Focus for short, CIC. So we work with young people from disadvantaged backgrounds to educate them about mental and physical health. So I'm going to go into a bit more detail as to why I set up the organization in a bit. And I call myself the PT for the mind when I'm not working in Focus CIC. I'm also a mindset coach, supporting, educating, empowering individuals to ditch their self-limiting beliefs and sabotaging behaviors that are holding them back from achieving their full potential in business. And everything that I do is all based on my lived experience. And in 2015, I was diagnosed with a mental health illness, and literally my whole world just shattered. I'm a former secondary school teacher, that was the job I was doing pre-diagnosis. And in October 2015, I resigned from that role. And a year later, exactly a year later to the day, I then became the founder and director of Focus CIC. At the time, I wish I had this workshop because I had no idea what I was actually doing, but I knew it was something that I wanted to do to give back to the community. And you know, it's just going from strength to strength, and I'm so glad that I did set it up. And as you see there, it's about mental and physical health, and the physical health came into it when I was advised to use physical activity to manage my health. I did so, took it a few steps further, and then went on to become a British champion bodybuilder in 2018. yeah. So that does help when I'm working with the young people that I work with, because it's like, oh wow. So that was the premise behind my social enterprise, the CIC. And as we go along in this workshop, you're going to see as to, you know, why I did what I did. So what I would like you to do is I've just introduced myself and who I am, and a brief bit about my business. If you can, Carl, I hope you can, just if you can take yourself off mute to introduce yourself, your business, and include one or more of the following. So what is your favorite business book and why? And is there a certain person that has inspired your work? And what was the most valued piece of career advice you've been given? So
yeah, I'm here. Sorry about the traffic, like I say, I'm out walking. Yeah, my name's Carl. I run a company called White Rose Education and Coaching Solutions, which is obviously a CIC. I set this up last year with two other directors. We look at different aspects working with the community. So we look around education, working around getting people into work, so working with unemployed elderly, looking at engaging with the community to get them active, again, obviously because of COVID and mental health. So we don't just focus on one target, we focus on a number around what the community needs. Business book, I'm not really a reader, so I struggle on that one. One piece of advice probably that I was ever given was, if you've got something that you want to do, just go ahead and do it. Don't worry about all the consequences. If you fail, you fail. If you don't, you don't.
Totally agree with that.
That's me.
Thank you very much, Carl.
No problem.
Thank you. Stephen?
Hi, I'm Stephen. I live in Waltham Forest. I split my time between gardening at the moment, and I do some tech stuff on the side. So a tiny bit of cybersecurity, data protection, where I'm self-employed for some of that. Sometimes it's contract work. So that's my line. Tech stuff, a bit of data protection, cybersecurity. I don't really read business books. I actually tend to avoid that section of Waterstones, but I do read quite widely. I would say there is one person that I really like is Nassim Taleb. He wrote a collection of books, The Black Swan, Forbear Animus, Anti-Fragile, things like that. So I'd say that's a good read, worth reading twice. Most valuable career advice, probably ignore the careers advisor at school. Don't listen to them unless they've got real world experience. The best piece of advice I think is go out there and try stuff. Just do it. Doesn't matter if you fall down.
I definitely agree with both of what you said, 100%. And that's why I went into mindset coaching, to help people to ditch their self-limiting beliefs. Because if we are still listening to that careers advisor that told us that we can't do this or we should go down this route, there's so many people that are still believing that, or still don't believe that they can't do the things that if they just stepped out of their comfort zone that they would be able to achieve. So thank you both for sharing. So Stephen, would you want to set up a CIC or a social enterprise?
Quite possibly, yes. Yeah, I don't know I actually don't know the answer to that question, which is why I'm here for the session today. This was just a chance encounter. I just saw this was running. So
thank you. And Carl, I hope that I'm able to part you with some new information, because you said that you've already set up a CIC. Yes,
that's right. Yeah, we set it up last year. I go on any webinars really, just to try and get a little bit, even if it's a one thing that I can take back into my business, then one piece of information is better than nothing.
Perfect. Oh, that's great. I'm that kind of person as well. So this is what we're going to be doing in this webinar. So we're looking at what is a social enterprise, setting up a social enterprise, the legal structures, staff structure, how to set up a community interest company, and it could be referred to as a KIC or CIC. I generally call it a CIC. How to register a CIC and CIC accounts. So I'm hoping that at the end of this, especially for you, Stephen, that this gives you a toolkit that you can just take away and say, okay, then I need to do this, I need to do that, and this is, and so on and so forth. So let me know if it doesn't. So, and Carl, like you said, there may also be some valuable information that you just didn't know, and you don't know what you don't know. And like I said, even though I set up a community interest company myself, there are still things that I'm learning as I'm going along as well. So here we go. So what is a social enterprise? So a social enterprise are businesses that are changing the world for the better. They tackle social problems, improve people's life chances, provide training and employment opportunities for those furthest from the market, and support communities and help the environment. Like myself, I'm supporting people to understand good physical and mental health. And I heard, Carl, you say that you're along the educational side as well, like the coaching for people. So, it's just really what it says there, we're helping people improve their life chances. And likewise with Carl, I believe you said you do training, and in training, I at Focus CIC, we also deliver training as well. We're an accredited centre. So social enterprises exist nearly in every sector, from consumer goods to healthcare, community energy to creative agencies. So some of the ones that you may know of is like the Big Issue. And if you live in Walthamstow, been in Walthamstow Market, you see that there's a gentleman normally outside Sainsbury's that is selling the Big Issue. So this is a social enterprise. So it is for the better good of the community. So there are over 100,000 social enterprises throughout the country, contributing to like 60 billion to the economy and employing 2 million people. So, you know, it may be that we're just small, but there, as you said, there are bigger ones that are out there. As I mentioned, the Big Issue, and all of us are contributing in some shape or form to these figures on the screen. So again, still continuing with what is a social enterprise. So going into a little bit more detail. So your business has a clear social or environmental mission that is set out in your governing documents. We're going to go a bit more into that a bit later on. You're an independent business and earn more than half of your income through trading, or you're working towards this. You are controlled or owned in the interest of your social mission, and you reinvest or give away at least half of your profits or surpluses towards your social purpose. And you have you are transparent about how you operate and the impacts that you have. So sorry, I just done that too quickly. So you will see throughout this workshop there's a big theme. It's all about like community and giving back to the community. And we're going to look at the different ways in like the different types of social enterprises that they are. But as you notice that it is about being transparent about how you're operating and what impact are you having. Again, like myself, the impact that we're having is around mental and physical health. And so we are very transparent about that. People know exactly what we do. Any questions before we move on? We all okay right now? And please, if there is any questions, put your hand up or take yourself off mute. More than happy to have a conversation about this. I just don't want it to be a one-way street. If you do have any questions or comments, please, yeah, let me know. And Carl, if there's anything that you know that I haven't included, please also include your knowledge, because as I said, we're always learning something new.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. So just to show you some statistics from the social enterprise report, and so that there's 47% of social enterprises are led by women, which is great. And 72% of social enterprises said that they were earning a living wage. They were a living wage employer, which is 72% is really good at saying that the people that they're employing, they're able to pay them the living wage. And 31% of social enterprises have directors from Black, Asian, and minority ethnic backgrounds. And 22% of social enterprises operate in the most deprived areas of the UK. Any comments about the statistics that we see here? Yeah, Stephen?
Does a social enterprise usually have a geographic focus? Is it is the mission meant to be for a particular community or area, or is it just social environmental?
It's just, I believe it's just social environmental. And for me personally, with these figures, I would have liked to have seen the social enterprise is operating in the most deprived areas to be a bit higher, so that there are more people on the ground and people that the community can go to that are supporting their needs. But you know, at least they're there, and that's what I thrive on, and know that what we're doing, we're in a deprived area, and not just Waltham Forest, we're in other areas as well, providing our support. But yeah, no, it's not a geographical thing. It's just, I think most areas do have, no, not even most, all areas do have some form of organizations that are social enterprises. So going into setting up a social enterprise. So when you're setting up your social enterprise, you must choose a business structure if you're starting a business that helps people or communities, aka a social enterprise. So you can either be a limited company, a charity, or as from the 2013, it's now a charitable incorporated organization, so a CIO, a cooperative, a community interest company, CIC or KIC, sole trader or business partnership. What we're going to be looking into, so just going back to this slide, is more into CICs, KICs, because they're more they're easier to set up, and you know, you can go from being a CIC, and if you wanted to go into being a charitable incorporated organization, you can do it that way. So you can go up, but you can't go down. So you can't just start saying, yeah, I'm going to go straight, I'm going to have a charity, and then realize that that's not the route that you wanted to go down, and then say that you want to start a KIC, because you wouldn't be able to do that. You would have to dissolve that company and then start a KIC separately. There are also organizations called unincorporated associations, and this is an organization that is set up through an agreement between a group of people who come together for a reason other than to make a profit. So for example, a voluntary group or a sports club. You don't need to register as an unincorporated association, and it doesn't cost anything to set one up. Individual members are personally responsible for any debts and contractual obligations. And if the association does start trading and makes a profit, you need to pay corporation tax and file a company tax return in the same way as a limited company. So what this basically means is, if you wanted to see how it would work first before you made any legal responsibility to, you know, sign up with Companies House and so on and so on, so on, etc., you could set up as an unincorporated association first to see how things may go with maybe with like a group of people, and set up a voluntary group or a sports club. Is that okay, Stephen? Do you have any? I thought you were trying to take yourself off mute. Okay, cool. So yeah, so as I said, this could be your first step, and then see how it goes, and then possibly moving to like a KIC. And again, it's same as before. It's not, you're not setting it up to make a profit. It is there to for the greater good of the community. Is a community interest the same as a social enterprise? So yes, a CIC is a normal limited company with extra features that mark it out as a social enterprise. So to answer that question, yes, it is a social enterprise, because as we mentioned, it is there for the community. A CIC is a special type of limited company which exists to benefit the community rather than the private shareholders. So as in a standard company, shareholders are in it for profit. And as we mentioned, that is not the case with a KIC. What is the difference between a CIC and a charity? So charities must be established only for charitable purposes. However, CIC can be established for any lawful purpose, as long as their activities are carried out on for the benefit of the community. So you're going to hear this word come up so much, like community, community, community. It is all about the community and not for profit. So that might be another term that not included here, but another term that you may have. Yeah, I'm a not-for-profit organization. So that could mean that they are an unincorporated association or a KIC. So that is another term that could be used as well. So before we go into any legal structures, just want to check to see if there's any questions that you may have from what we've just gone through. No? Okay, cool. So the legal structures, which is very, very important. So many social enterprises just start off from trading without a company structure. So as they could be a sole trader or unincorporated, like we've spoken about. And this could be fine when the income and activities are small. So that's why I said it's, you know, to start off with, to test the waters, maybe starting up without a company structure. But as you go along, you notice that this is actually working. I think we need to get some legal structure in here. These are the things that you're going to need to know. So, and especially if you wish to win contracts or apply for funding, there are many funders that are donors that would not fund organize like sole traders or unincorporated association. And we're going to go into some of the legal documents that are required for that reason. And so for that reason, that's why you need some form of legal structure. So your decision should be influenced by the type of activities you're going to do, where you think your money will come from, so now and in the future, what sort of governance you think will suit your enterprise. So how much control do you want? Who else do you want to participate? Who are your potential customers and who your potential customers and partners may be? So these are things that you, when, like for yourself, Stephen, thinking about, if you are thinking about starting up a kick or social enterprise, these are some of the really important things that you should be thinking about, whether you're going to start off as an unincorporated or just go straight into setting up with some form of legal structure. So companies can either be companies limited by guarantee or companies limited by shares. So companies limited by guarantee have no shareholders, only members who cannot profit personally from the company. And then companies limited by shares can be a social enterprise, but will often require adaptation. So stating what will happen with the profits, putting social mission in governing documents. And I must admit, when I first started, I had no idea what this company limited by guarantee, by shares, what do I want to set up as? Luckily, I was able to do some research and found out that I needed to be a company limited by guarantee. And again, some funders may not fund companies limited by shares, especially if there's not any adaptations made to their mission in their governing documents, because obviously they want to know where their funds and their money are going to. Is it going to the shareholders or is it going to the community? And obviously they want it to go to the community, hence why a CLG is preferred. What is limited liability? And again, I'm sorry, this is just in case people, again, I'm going from the way from when I first started, I had no idea what any of this meant. So that's why I've included this information. So limited liability, this is the major reason why a limited company is a popular structure for small businesses. The owners of the company are protected by limited liability. The amount that you have to lose if the company fails is strictly limited. Okay, so basically what that means is the owners are not personally responsible. So as it said there, this provides an important element of security for those who own and manage the business. Legal structure for a CIC. So the CIC is a structure specifically created for social enterprises, and this started in 2005. A CIC could either be, like I mentioned before, a community limited by guarantee or community limited by shares. Sorry, company, not community, company. I'm so used to saying community now. I'm just saying it for everything. A company limited by guarantee or company limited by shares, and has additional protection in place. So every CIC has to report its own social mission. So what is the community interest each year? And there are limitations for company limited by shares, like we mentioned before, on profit distributions, and CICs have a clause which means any assets are retained for community benefit. So do you see why I said that word community is just popping up everywhere, even when I'm saying it when I'm not supposed to say it, but it's just the word that just keeps coming up, all about the community. Are we okay? Yep, perfect. So because of these additional protections, CICs can often get access to some grant funding and are understood as being clearly a social enterprise. So this is why I've gone down the route of CIC when we're talking about how to setting up and running a social enterprise, because this is what a CIC basically is, and it's the legal structured way of setting up a social enterprise. You've also got charities. So a registered charity can be social enterprises as long as the amount of income they earn from trading is more than 50%. The main difference from a CICs or companies is that they are more heavily regulated. So the charities are regulated by the Charity Commission. They have a board of voluntary trustees rather than directors, and I'm going to be discussing the staff structure shortly. And there's some limitations on trading, and generally also takes longer to register. So it varies, because I have made inquiries about going up to a charity, and they said like it could take between like 3 to 6 months, even sometimes even longer, depending on the time of the year it is as well. So it does take a lot longer because it has to go through the Charity Commission. And they have greater access to tax reliefs, for example, on business rates and grants from foundations. So, you've got a lot of the time when you see, donate to charities, a lot of people can get tax reliefs from when they donate. However, with CICs, that's not the same case. But with CIC, you can still, access different types of funding. But when it comes to the tax relief, it's not the same. Any questions about CICs and charities, the legal structures? No? Perfect. Right, this is, don't worry, this is going to get a copy of this. This is just basically just, there's a lot of information here. I'm not going to read it out, but it's just to show you the different structures and what they consist of, how much the registration fee is. And so it just gives you all that information in one table. So don't worry about taking this in too much, but I just wanted to point it out that this was going to be available to you as well. So as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about staffing structure. So you may hear the term trustees come up, especially when you're talking about charities, and then directors, mainly when you're talking about social enterprise, community interest companies. Has anybody here been a trustee for a charity before? No? Okay, so I have been a trustee for charity, for charities, and the board of trustees is very different to directors, and we're going to go into that now. So a board is a group of professionals that a company or organization chooses to govern its business. Boards are often made up of either trustees or directors. Now, a board of trustees is a group of volunteers who proceed over a non-profit organization or charitable foundation to help uphold the relationship between the non-profit and its donors. So normally the professionals that make up the board, they provide their time for free, and it's voluntary. So like I said, when I was a board of trustees, it was literally giving up maybe even like a couple of hours. Some I was there for a couple of hours every month. Others, it was that we meet quarterly. It depends on the organization. But what was apparent that you don't get paid, it is for free. It is something that you do voluntarily. However, one of the first trustees that I actually became a board of trustees for, I didn't have to, but they deemed it like it was important if I stepped down, because the work that they wanted to carry out with young people, they wanted me to do it. So if they wanted me to do it, I wasn't able to do the work and sit on the board of trustees as the conflict of issue going on there. So, and then that would, and for me to do the work, they would have to pay me. So in order for that to happen, I stepped down from being the board of trustees. But what it did do, it gave me an insight into what the board of trustees do, the information that they require from myself as being an employee. And yeah, it made the communication a lot easier, because sometimes as an employee, if I didn't have that experience, you could think, why do they need to have all this information, and why do I have to feed back to the board of trustees, and why is it the board of trustees that have to make the decision? And so that really gave me a good insight into the questions that I had about why this and why that. And so it was very helpful. And I think that more people should, if not sit on the board of trustees, but just have that experience to see what it's like and why it's so important, why their roles are so important. I see you nodding, Stephen. Sorry, I just caught you mid-sip. What do you think about those views?
I just finished a stint on a board, 3 years. So yeah, it's really insightful. It's good when you also know from the ground up what happens in charities, because you know exactly what questions you need to ask.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks for backing me up there. And then you've got directors. So board of directors are just directors who share decision-making control for the overall aim, mission, and strategy of the organization. So you've got two types of directors. You've got executive directors who are responsible for the daily management, operation, and delivery of the activities of the community interest company. And non-executive directors are responsible for providing constructive challenge to the CIC. So being that critical friend to the organization rather than delivering the CIC activities. So again, I prefer back to focus CIC because it's my primary evidence that I have. And so I'm an executive director. I'm the person that's responsible for the daily management and delivery of the activities as well. And then we also have non-executive directors that are on the board. And again, something that I had to learn as I went along about, I had some people that were on the board and didn't realize that they could just be there as non-executives. And I thought that everybody had to be, executive directors. And so this was a really insightful piece of information for myself. Carl, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just, with our CIC, we just have 3 directors. The other 2 are sort of there to sort of help me make decisions, but I tend to run a lot of it. How easy was it to find non-executive directors? Did you know the people that you got involved, or did you bring people that you didn't know into it?
Thank you for that question, Carl. So I brought people in that I knew, and it just so happened that they kind of, like I said, they fell into the role of non-executive directors because they wasn't doing much work. But like I said in the beginning, I didn't realize that that was allowed. I thought that everybody had to be on the go and had to be doing things. And so when I realized that this was I was able to keep them on, and then I do the work. But going forward, I would like to have a few more executive directors, because it is a stressful, there is a lot of, well, I don't say stressful, but there's a lot of work to do when you're, especially as we're growing as well, there is a lot of work to do. How are you finding it, Carl?
Yeah, there is. It's just finding the time. It's just like the other directors are there because obviously when we set it up, we had to have, as you know, 3 directors. So I brought them in. They're directors, but they're not active. Well, they're not fully active. It's mainly myself. So I tend to run a lot of the company. And until you sort of mention it, really, I didn't realise you could bring non-executives in, and it might be a way to bring people into my business, really, that don't necessarily have a say or get a say, but can they sort of give us advice to the business and still sort of feel part of the business. So that's a route I might look at going down, is bringing in 1 or 2 non-exec directors.
Perfect. Yeah, and like I said, it's also having that someone else there to bounce ideas off.
Yeah.
You know, because I know for me, it just gets a lonely world out there just sitting there. And then when I do get to talk to people, I'm chatting their ears off and they don't know what I'm actually talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so that is very important. And I feel for our organization going forward, as we're growing now, as I said, we do need a lot more non-execs. And I feel like those non-execs as well could be like the young people that we work with, obviously over the age of 18, that could bring a different insight into the organization. So I feel like, and that gives them a way of them giving back what they've learned from what we've taught them as well. So even looking into something like that, Carl, would that help your organization?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's another avenue that, like you say, just not that the other directors aren't a sounding board, but yeah, just someone from outside. Obviously, they're sort of blinkered to a certain degree, and they're, you know, whereas if I brought someone the independent in, and that might be someone I know or don't even know, you know, it just gives a fresh set of eyes into the business.
Definitely. I'm contemplating this year to actually put out an advert as if it was like a board of trustees, just looking for somebody else, because it's all well and good us inviting people that we know, but like what I found is that they didn't have an interest with what I was doing or what the organization is doing. And so, like, you know, Carl, the interest is not, if the interest is not there, the spark is not there, and they just, you know, but find people that actually have synergy with what what the organization is about, and they have that same inspiration and motivation to want to support the people that you're working with. I think it's probably better to get people that you don't know rather than people that you do know.
Well, that's my thinking, and that the way I was looking at it was actually to put an advert out there and just sort of see what response I get. Because at the end of the day, nowadays, it doesn't cost anything to do that. So, you know, even if I got no response, you know, it's cost me nothing. And you might just find one person who's, you know, could be a bright, fresh air that you need in your business.
No, definitely. And on that note, I actually put something out the other day on Facebook, asking for some support on a club that I was running. And I was so overwhelmed with the responses that I got from people that actually, you know, were passionate about wanting to work with the young girls that we were working with, that I advertised for. And so, yeah, I was inspired by that, and I'm really gonna be putting an advert out there to look for other people. Yeah. So, if anything, you at least you've come away with that, Carl.
Yes, I have. Yeah, thank you for that.
All right, just gonna move on. So all directors, so executive and non-executive, have a shared legal responsibility to make sure the CIC fulfills its legal annual requirements, which are to prepare and deliver an annual accounts to the registrar of companies, to prepare and deliver a CIC report with a filing fee of £15, and to prepare and deliver a confirmation statement with a filing fee of £15. So with the accounts, we're going to go into a little bit later, but I've got an accountant that does the annual accounts for me. It just lifts that stress off my head. I probably could do it myself, but along with everything else that I'm doing within the organization, I had to delegate something to somebody. And with the confirmation statement, it's not as hard as it seems. You just basically logging onto the site, and just checking that you're just confirming that everything that you have already stated, that it's still the case. If anything needs changing, then you just update it, and then basically just pay the fee. To be fair, I think the fee might have gone up. It may have done. I need to actually check that, but yeah, there is a fee attached to it either way. How many directors are required for the CIC? You mentioned this just shortly, Carl. So a CIC that is limited by guarantee should have at least one director or subscriber, and depending on the bank or funding body you're working with, they may require 3. So with funding bodies, they do require at least 2. So it can't just be one person. So at least 2, where possible, 3 or more directors. And that's because having do at least 2 signatories for withdrawing money for the bank and for bank purposes, and so on and so forth. So that's what they require. Carly, have you found that as well? Is that because
it's three direct. The bank is normally 2, but when you're going for funding, it's normally 3, and they can't be related, and they can't live in the same household. There is obviously ways around that, but yeah, they can't have the same surname as you, and they can't live in the same household as well. That's the stipulation. But like I say, potentially there is ways around that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Carl. Yeah, thank you. That was a very important piece of information, actually. So yeah, so as Carl mentioned, non-related, surnames different, but you can get around that somehow. But I don't have the answer for that right now.
Well, I'll just tell you, my other directors is basically my stepson and his girlfriend, so we've all got different names. So that's how we got round it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So so there you go. And then, like we said, you're gonna be looking for other people as well, so who will definitely be related anyway. So yeah, that will support that case. So thank you for sharing, Carl. So, can directors of a CIC be paid? Stephen, I'm going to go to you. What do you reckon the answer is for this?
Yes, but only under certain conditions.
What do you think those certain conditions are?
Depends whether you're limited by guarantee or limited by shares, I'm guessing. And also it's probably max that are half of the revenue or something. You know, there's a maximum profit take. That's my guess. I don't know.
Thank you for sharing. So yes, you're right, Stephen. They can be paid by agreement with the CIC as a whole. So both executive and non-executive directors may be paid for their services to a CIC. And directors may also be able to claim out-of-pocket expenses that incurred while undertaking tasks for the CIC. Now, this is something I didn't know. And when people were telling me, I was like, no, surely not. How am I, the funding that we get is for the good of the community. Why am I paying myself? And for a long time, I actually didn't pay myself because I didn't know that I could. And I've spoken to other people who didn't know that they can pay themselves as well. And the thing is, especially with the work that we do at Focus CIC, I do a lot of the work, and because I wear a lot of hats, but what I'm trying to do more of now is not work so much in the business, but work on the business and pay other people to do the work that needs to get done. But when you're first starting out and you're not getting a lot of funding, and you're not able to pay yourself the market rate or pay anybody else the market rate, if you can do the work, then that's where you can, I wouldn't say benefit, but that's where you can start to pay yourself. Carl, how does it work for you? If you don't mind sharing, are you able to pay yourself, or do you have
no, I don't pay myself, basically because we've only been going a year. I've actually been putting funds in. I've been putting directors' loans into the business rather than just until we get established and I don't want to. I made that decision to not jeopardize it by paying myself. So I made this first 18 months I won't pay myself, and I'll sort of put funds into it, and then when we're at when we're stable, then obviously I'll gradually take my director's loans back out and then gradually pay myself. But all I've done is I've just took some freelance part-time stuff just to help with the bills, as well as putting into, using the time for the business.
Yeah, I hear that. And yeah, that's what I kind of like did as well in the beginning. I started to do work, but then pay into the CIC as like my own corporate social responsibility because I have a limited company for Andrea Corbett. So I was, effectively donating my pay to the CIC so it could be ticking over. So yeah, when it comes to CIC, and if you're first starting out, it is like what Carl just said. Are you in a position to not take any payment from the organization, And these are different things to start thinking about for yourself, Stephen, especially like if you're gonna start up a kick. What do you need to actually get started, and what do you have available to you? So, and then we go on to access funding. So access to funding. So choosing the CIC structure allows the project organization to receive grants, like what we've mentioned. And where it says here, some grants are not, or funding is not available to like sole traders or unincorporated associations. So places you can go to like Big Lottery Fund, HLF, Esme, Farben, and Foundation, and many more organizations. Like we go to London Youth, Sported, and that's based on, there are funding bodies that are, or organization that you can get funding for depending on the activities that you're delivering for your participants. And there are funding bodies that like we've gone to, like London Youth is an organization that works with young people, works with organizations that work with young people around sports, social action projects, and their funding forms are not as extensive or long as other, like say for example the Big Lottery Fund. And so it's really good when you are going to access funding to really look at, do you have someone within your organization that can do funding forms? If you don't, do you have the money to pay for somebody to do your funding forms? Or can you find smaller organizations or smaller pots of funding that can keep you ticking over, but won't take up so much time for you to complete, and is not as difficult to complete the funding forms. And that's literally what we've been doing over time. We've been, applying for the smaller pots because of our size, and two, I'm not a funding bid writer, so it's not as easy for me. And they do take a lot of time to actually complete. And so if you're working on other businesses as well, you have to make sure that you're accounting for the time it takes to actually complete the forms, and if you can get someone to read over them as well.
Yeah, can I just come in there?
Please, yeah, Carl.
Yeah, this, to be fair, accessing funding is the most soul destroying part of your business. I outsourced it and I paid a monthly fee to a company. I think it was probably beginning of last year. They did my first bid for me for free, which they won, and since then we've never won a bid. So it's actually quite soul destroying when you're getting bids not back that they're confident you'll get, and especially when you go into a professional who I thought we would have some quite success with it. And it can be quite soul destroying, and you think, well, why am I bothering anymore? I'm just gonna to basically not do it anymore. But and I took a couple of months out of the business and sort of come back into it really. I'm thinking, right, well, I'm going to start doing them. What have I got to lose? So even if you do go with somebody who, it doesn't always mean that you're going to get the funding.
Thank you for sharing, Carl. And that actually reminded me of the fact that that's actually what I did. We're quite similar. That I stepped back for a bit because it was getting full on, and then it just so happened to be at the start of lockdown. I thought, okay, I've got the time now. Let me just plow all my energy into looking into Focus CIC. What can I do to help rebuild it? And lo and behold, I'm grateful for these little pots, because as I say, every penny counts and every pound counts and every £100 counts even more, and so on and so forth. And that was what was happening. And we was able to just provide so much services last year to young people. It has actually been our most productive year since 2016. As I said, we started up an accredited centre to be able to offer qualifications now as a result of the pots of funding that we were able to receive. And there, like I said, there are smaller pots, but it's just as good, because you might not be able to work with a big group of people, but you're able to work with some of the community. And another thing you could also think about that we're doing now as well is collaborating with other organizations that have synergy with what you're doing as well. So we're collaborating with an organization that's a lot bigger than us and has a lot more income. So when it comes to funding as well, the more income you have, say for example, there's a fund out there now and it's for up to £80,000, and I probably, or I say Focus CIC will probably only be able to access, say for example, 20% of that money, because we don't have our income is not, it's based on your income. So the percentage you get is based on the income that you have, you know, on a regular basis. However, this other organization, because their income is a lot more, they may even be able to go straight for the £80,000. And so what that means, that if that's the case, we can collaborate, and you know, they can go for the funding and we could provide some of the services for that funding. And so it's finding different ways that you can access funding, if not from your own organization, but like I said, collaborating with another organization that does similar things. Yes, Stephen?
Question for both of you. How the access to funding is a grant application is a pain, but is how do you both generate your own income from your own activities, like the other income stream, which doesn't involve going to funders or big pots of money?
For us, for Focus CIC, we're literally a fully funded organization. So if we don't receive funding, then we don't get to put on any projects. But however, I have, and again, it's just time now. I have set up a Shopify. So our logo is, you know, it's quite a nice logo. So it's a logo that people can wear, and it means something. Like, everyone needs to focus on creating their ultimate self. So we're now going to be going down the road of selling merchandise to have another form of income coming into the organization. And as well, the courses that we run are courses that can actually be sold as well. So I'm looking into getting other accredited trainers to come on board so that they can deliver the courses that we can deliver, and then possibly get like a percentage from what they earn and put back into the CIC. So yeah, we're now that we have the facilities to do that, like the accredited center, we're looking at how to provide different forms of income, and maybe even providing some services that can be paid for. So we work with for disadvantaged young people, but if we can be young people from, you know, backgrounds that can afford to pay for some of the services, then that could also be a possibility as well. So we are looking at different structures now, income structures. Yeah. Carl, how?
Yeah, that's pretty much the same as us regarding our courses. We're just developing our program of what we want to offer, and then we'll sell them as a way of income, bringing income into the business. That's what we're looking at this moment in time. Obviously, we'll look at other aspects that of bringing income, so like, you know, holiday camps and things like that going forward. But we're just going to focus on the courses. Yeah.
Okay. And so yeah, so maybe even before, like yourself, Stephen, this is good because you can have all these ideas before you can get started, like how, you know, thinking about ways of you can bring in other income if funding applications are not successful. So moving on, so still on access to funding. So some donors will only give to charities or community interest companies because of their protection. These vehicles provide that funds will be used for their stated purpose. So like I mentioned before, you know, some funders or donors won't provide to sole traders or unincorporated associations. Therefore, access to finance, whether through provide donors, grants, or community development finance, may lead a social enterprise to operate as a CIC rather than a standard company. So, you know, because of this reason, you may not, like I mentioned in the beginning, maybe unincorporated association may be the way to start. But if you know you need to access funding, that may not be a way forward for you. However, there are some organizations, not a lot that I know of, but I know there are some organizations that do provide, you know, lower amounts of funding to sole traders and unincorporated association. But like I said, I'm not aware of many, but I know that there are some, because I know there's some application forms that I filled out that state, you know, are you an unincorporated or are you a CIC? But again, that's not always the case. So we're going into how to set up a CIC. So you need to have a community interest statement. So this is explaining what your business does, like what your business plans to do. So again, when I first set up a business, I knew what I wanted it to do, kind of, but I didn't have any form of business plan or anything. And I would advise that you have that. So you start the ground running, so you know exactly where you want to be, and like what we've just spoken about, what types of income do you need, and so you really thought that through. An asset lock, which is a legal promise stating that the company's assets will only be used for its social objectives and setting limits to the money it can pay to shareholders. So if you're a company limited by shareholders, then you need to make sure that that asset lock is in place. So especially when you're applying for funding, they need to be made aware of what that is, and so on and so forth, and how much you're paying to your shareholders. A constitution, so you can use the CIC regulator model of constitution. So there is a lot of information on HMRC that sets out there are models that are available for you to write a constitution. And to get your company approved by the community interest company regulator, your application will automatically be sent to them. So this can be done online. So when I done mine, I actually paid for an organization to do this for me, because like I said, I didn't have a clue of what I was doing. So basically what they did was they got a brief statement for me, an idea of what I wanted the organization to be about, what were my plans, and they done all the paperwork for me, which I'm very, very grateful for. But it can be done online, and you can, now I know, and now I have more experience, it is quite straightforward. But like I said, when I first started it up, it was a year after literally pressing the button to resign from my job, and I wasn't always in the right frame of mind. So that's why I thought it was best to get that sorted. So these are the things that you need to how to register a CIC. So you need a memorandum of association, articles of association, a CIC 36 form, our INO1 form, and the filing fee of £35. So we're just going to go into those so you get a bit of understanding about what they are. So the memorandum of articles is a short legal statement which confirms the names of those who wish to form the company. So each person must sign and date this memorandum. The articles, they are the rules about the running of the company. So you've got a CIC 36 form. It is a declaration that the CIC's activities will be carried out for the benefit of the community and how they will be achieved. And the CIC will not be involved in any lobbying or political activities. So you're declaring that is information. Then you've got the INO1 form. This is a standard form used to register a company with Companies House. Your CIC accounts. So from an accounts perspective, the criteria to qualify as a small CIC for a given financial year are your turnover, not be more than 10.2 million. You need a balance sheet, and your average number of employees are not more than 50. There are obviously, if you do exceed any of that, and I know at the moment none of us on this call are, so that's why I've just put in for the small, you qualify as a small CIC. You also got taxes. So CICs are taxed in the same way as normal companies. They are subject to corporation tax and VAT, and a CIC that makes donations to charity can deduct this as a charge when calculating its profits for corporation tax purposes. You then have an annual community interest report. So all the directors of a CIC have an obligation to prepare an annual community interest company report. So the CIC 34 form, and this is to be filed with the accounts. The report is made up to the report is to be made up the same day as the accounts. So regardless of the size of the company or the exemptions they have taken advantage of. And the report is delivered by the Register of Companies, who will file it on the public record and pass a copy to the regulator. So yeah, this is done. So at the same time when I do my accountant supports me with doing the CIC 34 form. So are there, I know we've kind of like gone through a lot there, but are there any questions that you need to, like what we've gone through, or any more questions that you have about setting up or, running a community interest company that we haven't spoken about? No? And what I would add there though, so we've gone through a lot, like how to set it up, the forms that you need. So like I said in the beginning about how I set up Focus CIC, it was without most of this information. So it is doable, and we've been going since 2016. And there are different, in terms of, one of the important things is obviously funding. And I know we're from Waltham Forest. So within Waltham Forest, they do, I believe they still do ward funding. So each ward has a different pots of funding that you can possibly apply for. So in the beginning, so I believe we got our first ward funding in 2016, and that enabled us to deliver a few workshops back then as well. So it doesn't have to be the ward that you actually live in. I believe it's the ward that you're going to be delivering the project in that you can apply to. And I believe you can also apply to more than one ward as well. When it comes to funding, again, it's really what I used to do was change what Focus CIC was going to do in order to meet the requirements for the funders. But now what we do, we know exactly what we're going to do, and we don't deviate much from that. And we have done the research to look for funders that meet our requirements. So we're not doing it we're not doing it the other way around. We're not meeting the requirements of the funders, because that way you're not staying, well, I won't say you're not staying true to what you want to do, but it makes a big difference to you might have to change things that you're used to doing just because you want to get them the money in. So we went from what one of a better term, a scarcity mindset to saying, there are funders out there that are gonna meet our requirements, and they are, you do your research, there are quite a few funders out there. So we do that now rather than the other way around. And as I said, we've been quite successful, albeit it is like the smaller pots. And when I mentioned smaller pots, our largest funding has been for, I like to say, in the region of like £5,000. And we've had a few of those, so which we're very, very grateful for. And in the grand scheme of things, £5,000 can go a long way, and it works well with the community that we want to work with. We've also gone to different organizations where we can get sponsorship from. So we do a lot around physical activity, so we've just been sponsored a tennis kit. So full tennis kit, and that was quite expensive, so we didn't have to pay for things like that. And there are other things that you can find ways around other organizations like sponsoring you or donating to your organization as well, which is very, very useful. So that's the funding part. We've spoken a lot on staffing. Again, looking for people, if you're first starting up, maybe working with people that but I would suggest putting an advert out there, from the get-go. If I had known that from the get-go, I would have done that instead of trying to ask friends, can you help me, can you support me? Like, just putting it out there, who's interested or who's passionate about working with young people around mental and physical health. And I believe I probably would have been a lot more, I wouldn't say look successful, but in terms of staffing wise, yeah. Carl, do you have any, with your knowledge of setting up a CIC, do you have any input at this last stage? We can't hear you too well.
I think you've covered a lot, more or less what I sort of already knew, and obviously I've picked up one or two bits myself, so thank you for that.
Thank you. And that means a lot, especially as you set one up as well. I just want to remind you that there are opportunities for you to book a meeting with a business advisor. So, and they are free. So if you haven't done so already, they are, like I said, I'm also on there as well. Looking slightly different, but that is me. So yeah, so you've got the opportunity to book.